welcome, and it's lovely to be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Japanese Knife Company this evening, and they've done so much to spread the word about fantastic Japanese craftsmanship in the UK and indeed beyond the UK. So, now I believe what I'm going to do now is introduce David Stetson, and David has played the major role, pretty much the total role, in producing this book, which we're going to be talking about. And David is a photographer and art director who has worked as a fashion photographer on 3 continents. I'm trying to think which 3. They must be America, this one, and Japan.
Oh, sure.
Spent quite a bit of time in Tokyo, so he's very familiar with Japan. And he's also had quite a few exhibitions of his art photography in galleries in London, New York, Tokyo, Singapore, and Cologne. And he is a life member of the National Union of Journalists. And I think he is going to do the other important introduction. Yeah. So I'll just hand over straight to you at this point, David.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you very much. And thank you for allowing us to do this launch of this wonderful establishment. It's a great place. Thank you all for coming. It's great to see you all. Most of you know this man, many of you do anyway. Jayesh Patel is the founder and owner of the Japanese Knife Company. He's also my oldest and dearest friend. In the more than 50 years that we've known each other, we've been friends, I consider him my brother. That's how close our relationship is. Tonight we're going to talk about this book, which celebrates the 25th anniversary of the Japanese Knife Company. But what this book doesn't say is how much effort and work and dedication that Jay has put into making the Japanese Knife Company the success that it is. And if I may, I would like to just read one paragraph from the book. Sorry, Jay, I'm going to embarrass you now. I didn't tell him I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this. Okay, this goes back to like the beginning of when Jay started the company. Overcoming the obvious language difficulties, Jay visited Japan many times, introducing himself to the knife-making industry, which is widely dispersed over a large area in Japan. Historically, in some respects, Japan has been a closed culture. Nevertheless, Jay's sincerity, enthusiasm, earned him the trust of the blacksmiths and the agents to represent them. And in time, his impeccable work ethic earned him their respect, something the Japanese value above all things. So, please let me introduce you to Jayesh Patel.
Hello. Again, I'd like to thank Jason for allowing us to use this wonderful space and to meet some new people, some old friends, and some old colleagues. Our journey started 25 years ago as a company in London, but the actual journey started about 10 years before that, when I discovered on a trip to Japan a Japanese knife that just completely and totally changed the way I worked in the kitchen. It was sharp, it was beautiful, it was just amazing. But there was nobody in this country who could maintain them. I was having difficulties, complaining about it to my wife at the time, and she said, if you stop complaining, just go and do something about it. So I went back to Japan thinking I was going to go there for 4 or 5 weeks, learn about knives, come back to the UK and start selling knives. Having gone to Japan, I discovered the very thing that I love about Japan. It's that ever continuing pursuit for perfection. And you cannot get perfection in 4 weeks. You cannot get perfection in 5 years. You cannot get perfection in 25 years, 30 years, 50 years that some of these gentlemen here in front of you have been practicing their art. It's a never-ending quest, and that's what's wonderful about Japan. The company itself started in a small way when people really didn't know about Japanese knives. People were buying German knives in the West primarily. We hope that over the last 25 years that has now changed, that people prefer Japanese knives to German knives, and I hope that we've played some small part in making that popularity of the Japanese culture and the Japanese knives in this country and in Europe. our company has had pretty much 5 stages over the 25 years. The beginning, the first time that we made the first wholesale customer, the first time that I met Rashid, my right-hand man, and meeting Nicholas and Piguet and Christophe in Paris. Just coincidentally, it turned out that not only had our company had like 5 stages of growth, but there happened to be 5 towns in Japan that are the most important towns that lie along a particular meridian that has the best coal and best water. So there are 5 towns of Sanjō in Niigata, Takefu in Fukui, Seki in Gifu, Sakai in Osaka, and Tosa, which is on Shikoku. So these 5 towns are the best places to get knives from because they have the 5 best elements of fire, water, earth, so they have the 5 best elements, and they came from 5 towns. So it was obvious to us that this is a story of 5. 5 also happens to be a lucky number in the Japanese culture, and an auspicious number, hailed back from some Chinese philosophy, but it's very, very important to the Japanese people. If you go and buy a set of hashi sticks, it always come in 5s. Buy some bowls, they always come in 5s. Everything comes in 5s. So here was a story of 5 for us. So we asked 5 blacksmiths in Japan to produce 1 knife each from each one of the towns for 5 well-known chefs in the West. So we have Claire Smith from Core, we have Angela Hardnett from Murano, we have Misaki-san from Dinings, we had Khalid Sasaki-san, who is here from Stockholm, and a very well-known chef called Giovanni Passerini from Paris. Each one of the 5 chefs told us what knife they wanted. So we asked one blacksmith from each town to produce that 1 knife for each of those chefs. They in turn produced 5 dishes that are all represented in the book. The book then also includes lots of other stuff about the shapes of knives and the history of knives and all that. But the knife in Japan have been an integral part of each other's growth. If we look back, the original knife, the original cutting edge, which is actually responsible for civilization, because without the cutting edge, we have no hunter-gatherer, we have no way of cultivating land. So the knife came about 1.2 or 1.3 million years before fire. Okay? So the oldest tool of man, and fundamentally a timeless design. It's a blade and it's a handle to hold the blade with. You can't improve on that. What the Japanese do is they extract the maximum performance out. They're not satisfied with saying, okay, we can make this knife, bang, 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 out it goes, out it goes, out it goes. Never trying to improve. If you buy, for example, a German knife from a well-known company, if you bought the knife 50 years ago or you buy today, it will perform in the same way. Whereas in most Japanese knives, you'll find that if you buy the same model of knife 50 years down the line, it will be a completely different animal. It will have evolved. It's forever striving for that perfection of functionality. So it's very, very important for the Japanese, the cutting edge for that reason. Also, if we look at the food of Japan, whilst of course there is a whole gamut of cuisine that we don't in the West often don't recognize, as soon as you say Japanese food, sushi, sashimi, that's what comes to mind, because it is so important in Japan. Also, a lot of the Japanese food is actually cut by the chef and cooked by the diner, right? So whether we take yakiniku or shabu shabu or sukiyaki or any of those dishes, they're all about cutting. The chef's job is just to cut, and so they require finer and finer blades to make those cuts, to cut between cells. Fugu. I mean, God forbid that you should have a little bit of the liver left from the fugu, you will be here today. So the cutting is very, very important, and that is now beginning to slowly creep in to the Western cooking and Western understanding. There's always been a certain number of enthusiasts about knives, but really it's down to the chefs. The chefs use it, people in the home use it. All right? People in the home use it, the chefs don't use it. Right, so the history has always been to go via the professionals down to the consumer industry. That history of Japanese knives has evolved over the last maybe century and a half or so. Originally, the Japanese always used to use just single bevel knives, what they call kataha knives. So they were flat on one side and sharpened on one side because primarily the food that they cut was fish. There was very little meat. The Portuguese came along, introduced meat, so the Japanese started producing double bevel knives for the Western market, and the original Japanese Western kind of influenced knife was the gyoto. Gyo meaning cow or beef, to meaning a sword, so a cow sword, and they produced this knife and found that the Japanese way of cutting, which is to go backwards, to go downwards, to go sliceways, wasn't working very well for them. So along came the san toku. San, ichi, ni, san, yon, go, san, the number, toku of how to solve a problem. And so now we have a 3 benefit blade, which became the book standard Japanese chef's knife. It was the Americans who, after the World War, when they were in administration, started introducing the original gyoto back into fashion because the Japanese saw it as the Western kind of, if you like, is the inspiration for a Western chef's knife. All we can do now is to rely on the talents and the desires of these, for the blacksmiths we've got here, and we've got another 42 other blacksmiths in Japan who work with us, is to rely on them to just constantly strive for something better, something better, something better. I'm always saying, oh, can I have a new, can I have a new, can I have a new? And they're always fulfilling our desire. So there are 3 faces of Japan. There is the very traditional, very old-fashioned craftsmanship, using, whether it's knife making, so using forges, or whether you're using calligraphy tools, or whether they're making a bonsai scissor, or making anything. The original and traditional way of making is the very, very old-fashioned way. That tradition is represented today by Doi-san, who is sitting to my right here, who works from a very small forge in Sakai. It's pitch black inside there. He works with one single little 40-wood light bulb. You have no idea the amount of difficulties my friend David has had, not only to actually take the pictures in the first place, but to actually get them ready for publication. The hours of devotion that he's done is unbelievable. They work in a very dark environment because they want to see the color of the steel as it goes in and out of the fire. At what point do I heat it? What point do I bash it? What point do I cool it down? These temperature controls. I know that if I ask Doi-san to take a piece of steel out of the forge and say what temperature is it, he'll probably get it within 5 to 7 degrees. At 800, 900, 1,000 degrees, he can tell you whether it's 1,005 or 1,004. Right, so it's just based on the color and experience. And he knows when to heat the thing. So that's your tradition. Very old-fashioned way. It hasn't changed in 400 years, 500 years, that method of making knives. The opposite side of that is the modern Japan. The technology, the efficiency, the constant pursuit, not just for perfection, but also perfection in presentation, in the perfection in how you present the knife to the customer when he opens it. That, you know, that whole feeling of, now we have this whole TikTok culture where people open boxes and people film it. It's that moment. That modern face, which has taken modern steels, modern technology of laser cutting, of forging, of grinding, that is represented by Tosa. His factory in Seki city is probably considered to be of probably the highest grade of commercial knife making in Japan today. And finally, there's the middle path, which kind of takes a bit from here and a bit from there. And that's represented by Kiryu-san, who is a one-man band, produces some of the finest blades that we sell in our store, which actually from 20 years or 22 years ago when I first met him, have always carried our logo on the knife. So it's a house brand and we believe in it so much. The only problem is that he's one man. And I could sell 10 times what he can produce by himself. And he also has to satisfy other customers. So it's very, very limited what we get from him. So having looked at the 3 faces of Japan, we've now selected the 3 different types of knives, the 3 different method of manufacturing, and those 3 have now transformed into 5s. So that's the story of the Book of 5. That's what we're doing here today. We are also here, from my point of view, to honor these people who work with us and honor the people who have supported me so valiantly over the last 25 years. Sitting in the back are 5 or 6 members of my staff without whom nothing would happen. Sitting here in the second row are the people without whom none of this would happen in Europe. So my thank you to you. I think that apart from that, I have very little to say. I will introduce you each blacksmith at a time. In the middle, sorry, I forgot to mention Aoki-san. Aoki-san is kind of the middleman when David mentioned agents. The blacksmiths, like a lot of traditional artists in Japan, and a lot of craftsmen in Japan, don't deal directly with the public or don't deal directly with people who sell the knives. They always like to deal with like a person in the middle, of wholesaler, if you like, or an agent. And Aoki-san is one such agent, but they are not just agents, but they're also, in their own right, subcontracting manufacturers. But Aoki-san's father and now Aoki-san are considered to be some of the best handle fitters. Now, in Japan, everything is taken so minute. The guy who makes the ferrule that goes around the handle is also a supreme artist, a supreme craftsman, and really very, everybody sort of kind of bows down to him. I remember going in Kyoto with Terakoba-san, who owns a company there called Aritsugu. Some of you may know it. If you've been to Kyoto, it's the main shop that everybody goes to. When the man walks in the street, he's walking down Nishi Market, I mean, he's literally getting gangbowed from 50 meters away, 40 meters away, because he's so revered. So every single part, and all he does is sharpens knives. So every single part, every single process, every single method, every single part is revered by the Japanese. So his company, which produces some of the best commercially made blades, together with Tomo-san, he also represents the work of Doi-san to the international market. So in turn, I would like to say, if you'd like to come up, Tomo-san. This is Mr. Tomo. This is Mr. Tomo Hasegawa. He speaks pretty good English, so I'm just going to leave it to talk. Japanese better. Okay, Japanese better.
Jason can do translation.
Jason can do the translation. Off we go.
はい、急に日本語で言うから皆さんこんにちは。
Good evening, everybody.
はい、紹介いただきました。私は、産地の中で、関市に、なります。
So, yeah, I am based in Seki city.
はい。それで、今 J さんから紹介いただきましたように、私の会社は、どちらかその産地の中でも、近代化された設備で、ものを作っています。
So, I work in this traditional area, but my company is one that has modernized and uses modern facilities.
はい。それでその前に、私は、この本、に、載ってるのは私の父で、とてもいい本を書いていただきましてありがとうございます。
So I think the book is great. It actually features my father.
で、私で3代目になりまして、今はほとんど私が、会社を、なんですか、任されているので、はい、今回の参加となります。
So I'm the third generation, and at the moment it's mainly me that's running the company, and that's why I've come to take part today.
で関市は基本的な特徴としては量産が得意なたくさん数がたくさんできる町です。
So one of the features of Seki, where I'm based, is mass production. It can produce large volumes.
その中で、父は30年ぐらい前からこう、一貫生産と言っていますけども、自分のところで、工作日本の工作機械、レーザーカッティングマシンとか、CNC マシンとかそういったものをどんどん取り入れて、で、精巧な、商品作りと、あとは最後は職人で仕上げるといったそういった、ものづくりを、しております。
So my father started about 30 years ago this method of integrated production. He invested in the latest machine tools, including laser cutting equipment, CNC machines, so as to have highly accurate production, and then the finishing is done by craftsmen.
そんな、デザインから最後の、最後まで自分たちで作る、そういった特徴の会社です。それで、今回、商品の方も海外の方に自分たちで売っていくっていう中にJ さんに20年ぐらい前に、私の父がいまして、その中で、三昧を、こう気に入ってくれて、その中で私も海外にこう物を売っていくっていう最初のきっかけをくれた、大事な、人ですし、お店なので、いろいろJ さんから学んでいるということで、非常に私の先生みたいな存在で、
So my father met Jay about 20 years ago, and that was Jay and his shop have been the reason why we've been able to start selling abroad. And so I feel I've learned a lot from Jay, and he's been a kind of teacher to me.
ということで、25周年おめでとうございます。
So congratulations on the 25th anniversary.
Thank you. Aoki-san, you can say a few words. A little bit, yes, please. So, again, my relationship with Aoki-san's family started with his father. Now he's taken over, and now we're working with him. His father does come in every now and again, and when we go to their offices, he kind of comes to lunch with us, and then goes off. Yes, please. So, and they're based in Sakai, which is the traditional home of the Japanese knife.
皆さんこんばんは。
Good evening, everybody.
私は堺で、和包丁の中でも片刃の、伝統的な、包丁を作っている産地にいます。
So I'm based in Sakai, which is a fairly traditional production area, even within the Japanese knife industry.
堺市は分業制をとっていて、鍛冶屋さん、刃付け屋さん、あとハンドルメーカーと私たち問屋で構成されています。
So in Sakai, the industry tends to be specialized. So you have the blacksmiths, you have the handle makers, and you have the wholesalers.
で、私は、フルセール、卸売のところで働いてまして、多分後から紹介される土井さんという鍛冶屋さん、あと刃付け屋さんとか、そういうのを組み合わせて一つの製品を作って、お納めするという仕事が主になってます。
So I work in the wholesale area, and that means that I'm working with blacksmiths like Doi-san, so buying the blades and the handles and putting them together.
で、和包丁、片刃の和包丁っていうのはすごい複雑な包丁で、使い方とか、メンテナンスとかそういうのがとても重要な種類の包丁になるんですけど。
So Japanese knives are extremely complicated and they're used in various different ways, and the maintenance of them is extremely important.
今インターネットとかすごい広がってるんですけど、詳しいところまでやっぱりお客さんに伝えてもいただくというのはやっぱり難しいので、今皆さん聞かれたみたいに J さんのそのスピーチというか 詳しい説明とかを、まあ、丁寧にシェフの人に伝えていただける、まあ、数少ない代理店なんで。
So, well, now you can find some information about this sort of thing on the internet, but it's quite a complicated matter to explain to the clients, the chefs, exactly how to use and maintain the knives. And so Jay is one of very few people, certainly outside Japan, who is capable of doing this.
これから先も、ずっと一緒にお仕事していけたら嬉しいと思ってます。
And I very much hope we'll continue working together for many years to come.
Absolutely. And now I'm going to ask for Doi-san, because they work together, before we speak to Kira-san, just to mention a few words about him, his father. His father was actually a living legend, a living treasure of Japan, who made knives for everything from the imperial court to all over the world, the knives, his knives guy. And now Doi-san is taking that mantle. I'm going to pass you on to him. Just a few words. A few.
Good evening. 私は、大阪の堺で、家事の仕事をしている土井逸夫と申します。よろしくお願いいたします。まずね、JKC の25周年、迎えられたことを誠におめでとうございます。
My name is Doi, and I'm a blacksmith working in the Sakai area of Osaka Prefecture. And first, I'd like to start by congratulating the Japanese knife company on your 25th anniversary.
そうですね、この場所に、ご招待いただき、本当に晴れがましい場所にね、招待いただきありがとうございます。で、4年前に、J の方から、一度ロンドンの方に来ないかとお誘いを受けて、ロンドン、パリ、ストックホルムと3カ所回らせていただきました。その時に、ちょっと入る方がいいな、すみません。
Oh yeah. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak here and introducing me. 4 years ago, Jay said to me, how about coming to London? And we went to London and Paris and Stockholm together.
Yes.
家事の仕事はですね、大きな機械を回して、大きな炉があってそこで包丁を作っていく仕事なんで、なかなかそれをね紹介するのに難しいと思いまして、途中の過程のできた繊維のとこを持ってきて、それで映像をね流しながら、今はこの段階ですよという説明をしながら皆さんに理解してもらうように紹介されていただきました。
So being a blacksmith involves working with quite large grinding machines, and it's a bit difficult to explain, but what I often do is I make a film and I take this round to people and explain this is the stage which we've got to with your knife.
その時シェフの皆さんに分かっていただけたかなというふうに感じております。喜んでいただいたなと思っております。
And when I do that, I feel that the chefs I'm talking to do gain some understanding of what we're doing and are pleased about it.
先ほど青木さんの方から話ありましたけれども、堺は、分業制でやっておりまして、私は家事なんですけども、ハンドメイドでね作っていくいうところが得意な産地でございます。そこで、私は24歳から、仕事を始めて、もう知らん間にもう46年になりました。
As Aoki-san said, in Sakai the industry is divided up by specialism, and I'm a blacksmith, and I started at the age of 24, and so I've been doing this for 46 years.
それで、堺の中でもいつの間にかね、上の方になって重鎮みたいなことを言われております。ありがたいことなんですけども。
In the course of events, I've gradually sort of risen up in the profession and am now regarded as one of the experts.
それで私はね3代目でおじいさんの代から始まって、父親そして私とやっておるんですけども、堺の中でも上級の包丁いうかな、そういうものを専門に作っております。
I'm the third generation of the family company. My grandfather was doing this work, and then my father, and we tend to specialize in relatively high quality knives.
堺の中でも私は誰にもその仕事は負けてないというふうに思っております。まあ自称ですけどね、コンセプトがあってね、競ったわけじゃないんですけども、まあそういうふうに考えております。
And I think there's nobody in Sakai who's better than we are. This is a bit of self PR, and we're not really competing in that way, but that's how I feel about what we're doing.
それで堺じゃなくて日本で包丁を作っている産地は先ほどJ から紹介ありましたけども、三条、関、武府、土佐、そして堺と主に5カ所なんですね。
So as Jay mentioned, there are basically 5 main production areas in Japan. So as well as Sakai, you've got Sanjō, Seki, Takefu,
and Tosa.
And Tosa, yeah.
それで堺の方は先ほども青木さんの方からありますけども、分業制で私は家事のみなんですね。
So Sakai, as Alai-san said, is sort of specialized, and I'm a blacksmith within that.
それで言われておるのが、内刃物の方は堺が日本の中で一番だろうというふうに言われております。
And because of that tendency towards specialism, it's said that Sakai is probably the best of these knife producing regions.
まあ自称ですけども、私が堺で一番、日本の中で堺が一番、私が世界で一番。
He's all right.
Yeah, so a bit more PR, but obviously Sakai is the best region in Japan for production of knives, and I'm the best in Sakai, so that makes me the best in the world.
I for one agree.
大層なことは考えてませんけども、毎日ねずっといいものを作っていかないかんというふうに思っております。それで私のね、銘の入った包丁を希望されるお客様が相当増えてきました。でやっぱりその方々にね期待に応える、あるいは期待以上のものをお届けできるように、これからも精進してまだまだやっていきますんでよろしくお願いいたします。本日はおめでとうございます。
Well, maybe it's nothing special. What I'm just trying to do every day is to make really good products. But there are an increasing number of customers who are looking for knives with a soul, and I am doing my best to meet the demands or exceed the demands of those customers.
That's nice.
Beautiful. And finally, we have Kiryu-san. Just a few words, please. He's from Sanjō, which is traditionally the Sumei Sanjō. I'm sorry I'm not standing on my legs, Robert. Sumei Sanjō, which is considered to be the Sheffield of Japan. It's where 80-90% of commercial production of things like cutlery and tools and actually originally became famous for its nails. And even today, I think that there is a nail making industry there. And here's Kiryu-san.
どうもこんばんは。
Good evening.
三条新潟県三条の桐生と申します。
So I'm from Sanjō in Niigata Prefecture.
ジャパニーズナイフ監督様の25周年おめでとうございます。
So congratulations to the Japanese Knife Company on your 25th anniversary.
それで一番最後に一番喋られないの私が喋られてしまう。
So it's unfortunate that I'm the worst speaker and I'm on last.
まあうちの工場のまず歴史からの話しますけど、うちのおじいさんがなぜかうちの母親の実家がやってた鍛冶屋に子供の頃でっち奉公に来て、そこからが始まりなんです。だからもうそれが昭和の初めです。
Right, I'd just like to talk about the history of our company a bit first. So it was started by my grandfather, who, I didn't quite get all of this. He
1927
right, 1927. Yeah, so I mean, he said it started at the beginning of the Showa period. He says 1927.
はい。
Yeah.
まあそこからまあ鍛冶屋になったわけなんですけど、で途中でどういうわけかステンレスの包丁に何か浮気をしてしまいまして。
So he became a blacksmith, but he had a bit of a dalliance with stainless steel knives for a period. Yeah.
まあ今主流の真ん中に鋼が入ったグラッド材、そういうのを作り始めたわけです。昭和の20年後半頃からですかね。
But from about the 1950s, yeah, he's been focusing on more standard knives with. I mean, it's getting a bit technical for me, but with the blade in the middle.
The core, the central core.
The core,
I will
yeah.
explain that in one second when we finish.
まあそんなことがあって私の父がどんどんまあいろいろ仕事をして私にバトンタッチしたんですけど、まあいろいろなことがありましたがどんどん自分の思うように今作っております。それで三条の
Yeah, so the business passed to my father, and I've now taken over, and I like to think that I'm now able to make the kind of knives I'm wanting to make.
で三条のやっぱり産地の特徴としては材料を入れて、まあ、最後の最後まで製品とするのがもうどこのメーカーもそれが主流なんです。だからまあつまり一つの工場で全部できちゃうと、全部作ってしまうと、それがどうですかね、若い時それ分からなかったので、今はまあそれを持って自分で当たり前だと思ったのがそういうことです。
So one of the features of the Sanjō production area is that the same factory does the whole process from getting the raw materials to producing the finished product. And I didn't really understand that when I was younger, but I've got it. It sort of seems natural to me now. Yeah.
まあ口下手なもんで申し訳ありませんが、ありがとうございます。
So, thank you.
Thank you. So just in closing, once again I'd like to thank especially my partners, my colleagues and my partners from Japan for making it all possible. From that small beginning of a urine-infested car park in Kilburn to having the stores in some of the major cities in the world. It's been a pleasure. And I hope that we continue to learn. I hope that the people who are after me will take over and carry on doing the same things as we've done. And I hope that the popularity of Japanese blades, Japanese culture, Japanese craftsmanship gets more and more appreciated outside, as it deserves to be. And so, once again, the book. I have to say nothing more than, if it wasn't for this man here, we wouldn't be here.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay.